Good evening, everybody. Welcome to CWU Live. My name's Chris Webb, Head of Communications. Our most prolific attendee is with us, Tony Bouch, National Officer. How you doing, Tony?
Hi, Chris. Evening, everyone.
Yeah, it's great to have Tony with us. We joke, but you are always willing to come on. We've got members right across the CWU in different areas, but Deliveries is obviously the biggest chunk of our membership, and there's just so much going on. So we do appreciate it. I can already see dozens of questions coming out already. So, what Tony and I were proposing to do today, you obviously know who Tony is. You know he's out and about 24/7. I think he's been on 4 or 5 off visits this week alone, meeting reps, meeting members. So we wanted to use this hour to get through as many members' questions as possible. So quick fire. Obviously, there's a lot of detail in Deliveries, but Tony's going to try and get through as many as he can in the hour, and then see where that leaves us for future sessions. So, Tony, if I can, get straight in.
Yeah, no problem.
So the first one's from David Petit, who says, you talk about the state of workplaces in the country, but when are you at the top table, so us and Martin and David are going to do something about the actual state of Deliveries? By the sound of it, it's only going to get worse. It's okay sitting here saying it should be done, what should be done and what should be changed. We are fatigued, the mail's failing, and yet again we're being asked to bear the brunt of a workload being slung at us. Will you answer these questions? So, yes, we will, David.
Yeah, we will do. Thanks, David, for the question. I think there's a number of questions there in one, really, Chris, isn't there? And it's really difficult not to answer some of them without getting into where we are with VP Group and the reason why USO is on the table in terms of reform. Because, obviously, I think for the people that saw Martin's video with yourself on Tuesday, I think it was, in essence, Royal Mail is going to announce that they've probably broken even at the end of this financial year, so around about May time. But in reality, that's against delivering 73% quality of service. And what that means in reality is if they'd have delivered the 93.5% quality, they would be announcing a loss of about £270 million. And we can't get away from that fact. They've made a decision, along with Ofcom, to not deliver the quality of service thresholds to targets, which has created chaos in our delivery offices. And we've got to get through that under USO reform. So, it's a reality. We're having to deal with that. We don't like it. That's what the business have done. And Ofcom have obviously done a token gesture in terms of a £7 million fine. When it comes to workload in delivery, look, I think there's a couple of things we're doing now. So one is the USO pilots that have gone live now. So we're now in 3 have gone live. They are seeing an improvement on quality of service because the number of jobs going out every day is less because you've got a core and combined duty attendance pattern. So where they didn't have enough bums on seats, they've got some surplus or they've got the right number. And that's seeing an improvement in quality of service. But the reality is we do need to fix that going forwards. We do need to deal with fatigue, and I want to touch on that specifically in a minute with you when we get into some of the questions. But we are about to do a completely new fatigue study right across delivery, across the pilot offices, because we're concerned, and I'm concerned, that we haven't done one since 2013, 2014, and the job has significantly changed.
So, one of the questions that we were getting from members a lot seems to be, obviously, the USO, as you said, the pilot's gone in, but in total pilots, we've only got 37 offices, which remains a tiny fraction of the number of offices we've got across the country. And people are sort of saying, well, I just can't keep waiting until USO may or may not come round to me. What is the union doing right now to fix these issues?
So there's a couple of things we're doing. So one, we've got any offices that are not operating as they should be. We want that escalated up. We want to use the IR framework. So if we've got an overtime ban in offices, if members are being told they can't claim extended delivery, you can't come in and work your day off and it's just going to sit in the office. Look, our local reps, we've said that, should get it into the framework. Look, the business are hiding behind. This is a national position that they've done. We're being told nationally from Royal Mail there is no diktat, there is no policy for overtime not being done. So where that's happening, get it in a framework. Our area reps support the local reps and divisional reps will support the area reps or somewhat that point. Where we've got offices that are struggling to complete walks because literally our members don't have the time to do that, then again, we should be putting proposals to Royal Mail to fix those walks and actually put it into the framework. So one of the things we've started to do in the last 4 weeks, Chris, is we've started to issue out to our reps a weekly audit of where weekly resource meetings are taking place. And that should be the mechanism to say, if I'm on walk number 1 in the office and it was planned to be 4 hours 45 and it takes 5 hours 15, then we should be putting proposals to management to say that has to be fixed. Now, that is important, particularly as we get into USO reform, because if we've got 10,000 routes that were planned at 4.5 hours and they're taking 5 hours, then all of Raw Mail's assumptions are wrong. So we really do need to get into that detail, and we're going to support the reps. We've put out some advice to reps today as well to start using the process and where we're failing to get it into the framework.
I mean, it's interesting what you say there, because we are seeing, I mean, always try and put a balanced position, and obviously, put it to you there that members are saying the union's not done enough in some of those areas, but we are also seeing, we're going to meetings and seeing reps stand up and say, I've sorted these issues and I've moved them forward. And I guess, is that a challenge from you to be saying, obviously coming on Facebook, coming on YouTube, welcome, we're the most transparent union in the country in terms of members' engagement and members' ability to speak to people like yourself and Martin and Davey and others. But do we need some of that energy and transfer from those comments back into the workplace to say, look, come on, let's get together, let's get beyond the local rep and sort these things?
Absolutely. So I think there's a couple of things for me, Chris. So one is that Raw Mail keeps telling the union that we got 1,258 delivery offices. There's resource meetings happening every week. So where there's a local rep in place, or if there isn't a local rep, the area rep is doing that resource meeting. On the latest evidence that we've seen over the last 4 weeks, they've only said there's between about 85 and 100 workplaces where that doesn't happen. Now, I know that's not true. The divisional reps know that's not true. Area reps know that's not true. But we really do need to expose that to every level, because where we've got good reps and good managers in offices, then the members benefit from that, because the members are then going through weekly resource meetings or having those honest conversations, what can be done, what can't be done. Whatever the traffic forecasting is, they're getting into that debate, they're putting an additional resource in, and they're working through some of that challenge. Now, where we don't have reps, obviously that puts pressure on the area reps. So all of the union structures needs to come together to ensure that where we've got best practice, where we're doing, members of our union are getting served well by the CWU, we really need to make sure that flows through to every office, because otherwise those members suffer.
And is that another opportunity, I guess, for you to issue a bit of a challenge, which is, because I don't even need to look at the comments to know that right now if someone or multiple people would have said, but I haven't got a rep, and then you immediately pick that up in your answer. Is there almost an onus on, and it is a really difficult task, but we do need a rep in every office. There's an onus on people to step up at this moment, I guess.
Yeah, there is. Look, I think there's a couple of things for me, Chris. So look, we've gone through the dispute in 2022, which was tough, wasn't it? I think we all accepted it was bitter. There was an attack on the CWU. There was an attack on our representatives. There was an attack on our members. So some people have been fearful of putting their head above the power pit. But for me, I've been clear. We will train reps. We will support reps. We'll support branches. We'll do what we need to do to encourage people to start to step up to be a representative in their workplace and give them the tools to do that job. And really, it's a plea from me. If you are interested in being a CWU rep in the office, the CWU will support you in there. We'll support your branches. We'll get that done.
Class. Thanks, mate. So back into the comments. And John Gorman. John says, bigger question is to Tony. Do you feel that what if the USO pilots don't work? What is the future of postal deliveries? Will the company say it's new owners when they come in, say enough is enough and split the company into parcels only, reducing the service to 3 or 4 days a week, costing, in his words, God knows how many jobs, because it's not very clear what's going to happen if it fails. It feels a bit like all eggs in one basket, is John's sort of comment. And we've had a lot of members. I guess the backdrop to that comment is years and years of Raw Mail saying, here's our latest thing, and it's not worked, and people have lost confidence in them,
Yeah, look, I think there's a number of reasons why people will be fearful, Chris, isn't it? Because we've been saying this and we've been clear. The reason why we support EP Group coming in for the takeover is the company's been mismanaged over the last few years, and we need a fresh executive board under IDS, and we need a new Raw Mail board, to protect the jobs going forwards. Now, the reality for the speed of delivery and the reason why we're getting in the 37 pilot offices is, from a CWU perspective, this is the one where we believe that it will be the one we can manage in terms of a reduction in jobs. It will change the full-time, part-time ratio to more full-time overall. So there may be a total number of jobs less, but the ratio from full-time to part-time will be greater towards full-time, and we can manage that. Now, the biggest concern will be if we look at other European postal administrations where they've gone to a 3-day letter delivery. If you've got a situation where, I think the biggest one that our members would have seen in recent times over the last couple of months has been Denmark, that have gone to made a decision just to scrap all letter delivery in total. And I think I've been on previous shows where that's then gone down to 111 delivery offices, down to 11. and obviously no letter delivery across the week, and that's had a huge impact on jobs. So we don't want to get in there. The speed of delivery model is one, I think, that Royal Mail believe that quality of service will improve. And for the CWU, we have to hit the 4 criteria, which is the job is fair and manageable, quality of service improves, our members get a benefit, and obviously the company is successful going forward. So I think that's the key thing. If that doesn't come through, then clearly the concern will be Ofcom might consider a 3 or 4 day USO. But on that change, that would have to go back through Parliament.
Thanks, Tony. Tony, I think, giving some brilliant detailed but efficient answers so far, so we are getting through them, which we want. Just to let you know, the questions we're taking are a mix of those which were on Facebook, on the Union's national page this morning, and live. So we've taken a couple of the ones from this morning. Let's do some of the live ones. Ned's 23 says, how late could the finish times be? Last year we had a later finish time forced upon us, causing many childcare issues, etc. Nobody in our office who had issues won that case, and I can see it happening again. So are there, as part of the USO proposals, more later starts coming and more disruption to people's lives?
So look, I'll be interested if Ned could share which office he's at, because look, I've lived in brief network window, as you know, for the last couple of years. So I'd be really interested, Ned, if you can say which office you're in. Look, we're about to, I think if we can cover off network window in a minute, Chris, or I can do it now. Yeah. So we're about to do a deep dive on the whole outputs of network window. We've done we've done the network window changes from last year. We've done PIR 1, we've done PIR 2. We've had some really big successes in the number of offices where, if you remember last year, Royal Mail wanted to move delivery to 9 to 5. The network was changing by 3 hours. We've achieved, I believe we're going to end up where somewhere about 89% of all deliveries will be completing by 15:30 based on where we get to at end state. So yes, some people will go beyond that and some people will be up to 16:30. I understand that in terms of the extremities, but if we end up with 89% of our members finishing before 15:30, which was the finish time before the Business Recovery Transformation Agreement, I think that's a success for this CWU. And if we can get the vast majority of our members less than an hour's impact, where I think we'll land on. Now, in terms of the start and finish times under USO, now there's a couple of things we have to work through, which the pilots are doing. So the vast majority of delivery members, about 46 to 52% of delivery members, are on a 1 in 6 attendance pattern, which is a 7-hour, 24-day. To manage the change under USO, obviously because you're going to be delivering more mail and going to more delivery points on the days of all mail days, then rather than a revision, it's being managed by picking a new attendance pattern. So in some instances, if you go to a 2 in 6 attendance pattern, so 2 Saturdays off in 6 or 2 in 5, that increases your length of day to 7 hours 50. Now, that'll be choices for our members. Our members will see in every single one of the 37 pilot offices, they will get the opportunity to see what the 7 menu of options does to the start time, to the finish time, and they will be able to decide what suits them best.
Thanks, mate. I'm going to have to ask you this one because it's come up live, and and by the way, I know it's because you'd welcome any question. But it's one of our area delivery reps, Andrew Young, who says, as area delivery rep for one of the pilots in Scotland, I walked away from Girvan pilot because Royal Mail were not following the terms of reference, and I submitted an IR disagreement, 2 disagreements in total. Why has this been allowed to be deployed? And I guess in answering, that will be unnerving to members seeing that and seeing, well, one of our senior reps is not on board.
Yeah, look, I understand that Andy's question because I've been to Scotland Division. I've met Andy at the Scotland Divisional meeting and answered that question there in person, so I've done that. Likewise, I've been to Cumbernauld Delivery Office, I've been to Ayr Delivery Office to meet the members and go through those pilot activities. I think that's a fair challenge. I think one of the lessons we've learned is because we're the company at a timeline in terms of USO pilots, the Scotland ones we probably could have handled better. I think we've been fair to accept that criticism, Chris. We're doing that. We've now got the support network in place in terms of PE members being tagged to the division. Divisional reps are obviously supporting the offices, and obviously we've got the area reps and the local reps. So we're working through that. Obviously, the 3 offices that are live at this moment includes Girvan, which I know is the one that Andy's talking about. And I think where the report I've had today, both from the PE member tagged to Scotland and from Royal Mail, has been Girvan would have been in a much worse place if USO hadn't started this week, because there's less routes going out every day, which where they didn't have enough bums on seats, it's meant there's actually USO has improved. But look, we're learning through those lessons. We're going to we're challenging Royal Mail to say, I think there are some road managers out there, USO champions, that have been doing stuff outside of the terms of reference. We're gradually rolling that back, and to be fair, we've made it clear today to Royal Mail, and we've put it in right into the divisional reps tonight, that there should be no activity outside the 37 pod offices because we need to get this right.
I mean, at the point Andrew makes there, I mean, going forward, how do we get? You can't not have an area delivery rep not involved, and the national union saying it goes on, or whatever has happened there. How do we get Andrew back involved in that? Because surely that's the right way.
No, it is. Look, we want Andy to be involved fully in the pilots. We want to, because he's got good knowledge. Andy's a really good area delivery rep in Scotland, the Glasgow branch. I know he's got some frustrations around the network window. We're putting that right. We're currently doing a PIR in Scotland for Glasgow to improve that. And look, if I need to speak to Andy on a one-to-one, I will do, and Andy will get the support from the CWU, and we'd ask him to reconsider.
Thanks, Tony. Brilliant. Ride, Hikes and Rambles, good name. And I think he makes a good point. He's saying it's all right saying get reps into meetings. How about some actual training for reps so they aren't left doing the best they can? I know you've talked about this extensively. I know yourself, Martin, the other officers, and Kate Hudson have been working on training packages. Maybe a chance to talk about that.
So what we've done, Chris, so I think we issued in October last year, in November, we've done a training package to each of our CW divisions, so nominated a CW lead, so whether that was an area delivery rep, whether that was someone who's really good in training, every division nominated a lead that would be taken through the delivery revision process. Again, that's then been cascaded through every division. Every branch can ask one of those leads to come in and do training with their local reps and or new reps. So we really want to. So that's not necessarily accredited training. That is us giving the local reps the tools to do the jobs in their workplaces. And we can extend that to any area in the country. So even if we've only got, in some divisions, even if it's just, say, 2 reps in branch A and it's a new rep in branch B, it's a new rep in branch C, so on and so forth, we can bring them into one school and do that training course. And we'll do whatever we need to do to support those people to become reps.
Thanks, mate. David Green, actually, a couple of people have raised this. Says, can repicks be forced through before the national repick? Because that's what's happening in my office. Just to sort of give a bit, I'm sure you already know, but give a bit of detail to the people watching. Is the point David's making there is there's a revision going on right now, which is caused a repick, and then they're anticipating that the USO changes come in, and there potentially is another repick. Can they do that, Romeo?
So we're literally in a place where there's only about 25 revisions that go in place now as part of the revision structure. So I'd have to understand if David wants to drop me which note it is, Chris, so I can pick that up and understand, because not all revisions derive at a repick. And likewise, it may well be in terms of the USO reform. There's a couple of things we're going to have to pick up, I think, and we've taken this as an action. Where we've got some officers that are doing revisions now, they should be at the back end of the USO plan. So we've always had an understanding that revisions would never be more than one in a year, and we've always defined a reasonable period between 9 and 12 months for another major change. So we might look at that if David gives us which office and make sure if there's an agreement under Section 5, if we land on a USO national agreement to go to full deployment, that we would make sure those officers are at the back of the plan.
So this isn't aimed at you, by the way. This is aimed at, I think, the union. But let's take it on. Lee Edward Hutchinson says, and I quote, "Talk is cheap. When is the action going to take place? 5 years since COVID, 5 years of talk, 5 years of mail failing, but yet trials are going ahead. PDA is becoming more like Big Brother check on you. Raw Mail do exactly what they want, and the union talk about it." So I mean, you've given some really good incidents, Tony, of the action, I guess, already. But how do we, take Lee's obvious passion for the union and for his job and get him on side with the union?
So Lee, look, let me be brutally clear for you and all the delivery members on this session tonight. So I've made it clear to Raw Mail that I'm fed up with the way in which productivity and efficiency is being recorded in delivery. And we have written to them formally to say we want to do an audit of delivery in terms of all the tasks that our members do day in, day out, because since COVID, we've supported a number of enhancements, we've supported a number of new products and services being delivered, but we don't feel that delivery is getting the credit for that workload and all the time. So we've put that in writing, we've made it clear that has to be resolved now, but has to be resolved going forwards, and we've laid that marker down. I will not let that continue for our members in delivery, because I think everyone you go and speak to, every office I go to, people are feeling the pressure, and we've got to turn that back onto the business nationally. Back
to our live questions, for the help of the team putting them on screen. This individual's called DSW3751, I think. I think a regular poster as well on both Twitter and YouTube. So welcome back. And he says, "Is it just me that thinks none of the pilot offices in London? And if they are in London, could you let us know where they are?" I'm asking that because actually this individual's asked that on a couple of sessions over the last few weeks.
Okay, so we have got 37 pilot offices across the whole of the UK, every division. So what we call divisions is Royal Mail's regions. Every division has got a number of pilots. I think the minimum one is 2 in the southeast, to the most in the northeast, and other areas where they've got 6. London has got 3 pilot offices in London. So they're due to go live in May. The CWU and Royal Mail are briefing in those offices. And we need to do that across every office. And
Do you know where they are, Tony?
Yep. So we've got West One, which is in London, which is Mount Pleasant Mail Centre. We've got Stoke Newington, and we got North Finchley in terms of the 3 offices. So, funny enough, I've spoken to the divisional reps in the last 24 hours about actually visiting one of them myself, Chris, because I'm making it clear that across the 10 divisions, I want to get out and visit every single, or at least one pilot office for the USO, and one normal office, so I get out and about there, and I've agreed to visit West One and either Stoke Newington or North Finchley.
Brilliant, thanks, mate. You got your answer. You've been asking for a long time, so sorry, but it wasn't. I can't think the last time, but it wasn't a delivery session last time you were asking, colleague. David Livingston, another live question regarding fatigue, because I know you wanted to talk about fatigue. I asked to change my job to make it easier and have some time off, go on another walk. I was covering all the time. It was refused, and I guess that leads me into that, obviously picking up David's question, but also the wider issue of fatigue, longer walks, longer days, more challenging circumstances. Yeah. You've said about the fatigue study, haven't you, and doing that, but a wider view from you on the increasing pressure on delivery workers particularly?
Yeah, absolutely. So it links into 2 parts, really. So one is that we've challenged the business on productivity and efficiency and the recording of that in delivery. So that's part 1, because we don't think people are getting the credit in delivery for the role that you do day in, day out, and sort of any relaxation that needs to be built in and or considered, it will be part of that. The second part then is obviously for the fatigue. So the USO pilot offices will be a selection of them where we will ask volunteers to be part of a fatigue study. So that will be understanding how far they've walked, the number of steps, the distance that they've covered across the working week. Is there any impact on their heart rate, and so on and so forth. So that will be a joint study with Royal Mail. I referenced the last time we did it, I think was in Scotland in Renfrew back in 2014. So 11 years on, we need to do that. So we will pick that up. The second part of it then is, how do we give our members the tools for the job to make the job easier? So is there new equipment that's available? So is there electric bikes? Is there electric trikes? Is there electric HCTs that can help support our members while they're out on delivery? Likewise, is there enhancements to the current lightweight trolley or any pouches that our members use to, again, make the job easier? And the third one is, what obviously we're looking at in the pilot offices is around where we've got core and combined walks, and I know we have to deal with the drivers and the non-drivers issue, which is a live issue. But one of the things we're looking at is, can people go into rotations? So could they go into rotations every other week? So 1 week of walking, 1 week of driving. The start and finish times will be the same in those offices. So where we've got now, if someone struggles to do a walk-in delivery, in their main they're asked to either go on a collection or go on a DPI duty or an LET, which is a later start and finish. Could we get that in terms of a rotation in the office? So if we were 7 o'clock start, 3 o'clock finish, I could do 2 days walking, 2 days driving in an office, and I rotate that through, or I could do 1 week walking, 1 week driving. So we're absolutely alive to it. It's a 3-pronged approach, and the other thing we will pick up then with the business is there better ways where we could come up with some other hybrid duties? So a couple of hours walking and some other tasks that we'll try to think through. So absolutely alive to it. We're picking it up in some sessions with Royal Mail next week as well.
Thanks, Tony. Ziggy Starburst, great name, says, our office is not on the trial list, but we've been told the USO changes are coming in inverted commas, this summer, regardless of the trials, and friends in other offices have been told the same. Now, that I guess is one of the things. So, like, this week, we put an update out from Martin, and I know you were in exactly the same position you've reiterated at the start of this episode, where we've said to Royal Mail, There is no agreement beyond the current 37 unless we get all of Section 5 sorted out, which includes pay, new entrants, voluntary redundancy terms, and a raft of other important issues. And we were met with a lot of members going, well, they'll just do what they want anyway. And I guess what Ziggy's saying there is the same, and almost suggesting that Royal Mail are basically saying that it's happening. So like, that doesn't build confidence. It doesn't build confidence in the union. We've got to take that on the chin, but it doesn't build confidence in Royal Mail being genuine either, does it?
No, it doesn't. And I think, look, what I would say is we've reiterated that message today to Royal Mail at the meetings I've been at. We've been clear. The only activity we will agree to and we've jointly signed up to is in the 37 pilot offices. So formally written to CWU reps, division reps tonight to say any activity and on what Royal Mail we're looking at and what Ziggy's referencing is Royal Mail want to look at about 120 offices on top of the 37 pilot offices to start making some indoor changes ready to support any increase and or if Ofcom agree to the change. So they want to get ahead of the game by doing the indoor changes. We've been clear, we don't support that. There should be no activity outside of the 37 because obviously, as Martin said, I think in his video with yourself, Chris, on Tuesday, Section 5 and the pay talks have got to come to fruition. So we're making that clear. I think the only other thing I would come back to is, both parties have signed up to terms of reference. That's what we're working to. There is no activity outside the 37. And the key thing is we've got, obviously, as part of the EP takeover and the update that Martin gave on Tuesday, those talks are about completely resetting industrial relations and employee relations. And if Royal Mail start to turn on, whether it's now or in the summer without an agreement, that would only backfire.
I think it's a really solid answer. The question might come back from the members, though, of, yeah, but they did that during the dispute. They've continued doing it after. They've done. They're still prioritising parcels, packet traps. So how do we convince people? Like when Martin says, and you say with absolute confidence, and I look at it in my experience in union and go, yeah, that makes loads of sense. They're not going to be able to change the USO without regulatory and union approval. It's clearly too complex to do so without. But members are so used to being beaten down on now that they go, well, they're going to do it anyway. So how do we? And that's not, I guess, what's the other thing about that is that's not a good place for us to have the members in because we need the members going, this ain't happening unless you agree to X, Y, Z, don't we?
No, we do, Chris. And I think this is the other thing is as well, look, I think it's draining on both sides, both Royal Mail and CWU, when we've got to think about the strategic stuff we've got to deal with. There's huge change coming. I think Martin referenced this, the biggest change since 1968, I think, on the video you did with him this week. And look, none of us needs to be in a situation where there are, whether there's rogue managers or there's stuff that's not being agreed, they're turning up at offices and saying to the members, you're doing X, Y, and Z, because it just means people like myself, the interfaces I've got from Royal Mail, we spend hours and hours trying to deal with firefighting rather than dealing with the bigger stuff. And like, I can only go on the actions that have taken place over the last few weeks where there have been instances where managers are going out forthwith our terms of reference outside of our agreements in the pilot offices. We've got it stopped. Now we put the challenge back to them that says it only is in 37 pilot offices, and obviously, I think Martin's meeting Royal Mail as we talk now. In terms of some of that to try and reinforce that point. So I think we need to give our members the confidence that says this is going to be controlled, it's going to be done in agreement, and where there are issues and areas where Royal Mail breach that, we'll intervene and we'll stop it straight away.
I was interested in this point from Paul Kennedy. He says it's the area managers that need to be challenged by national officers, as they're the ones dictating to local management what they want prioritised. And I guess that, as you see, say your election and the amount of engagement you're doing with members, the fact you're busy resolving issues, you're engaging with Royal Mail on a sort of hourly basis. And you would have to say, I guess, that things seem a bit better at that level. And then the members go, well, we're just not feeling that. So how are we, going to get that change and that positivity flowing down to where it actually matters? Because actually, we'd be far better off if you, Martin, and the CEOs didn't even speak, but it was better in the workplace, wouldn't we,
No, listen, I completely understand that question because I think it works across all levels, Chris. So I think from a national perspective, we're seeing better relationships. In some areas, that's flowing down to divisional reps and their interfaces, so the regional operational directors. But is it flowing down to an area delivery rep who covers 15 delivery offices where there's an OPL who just continues to do what they want and they work to, it's our business to run? And I think where we've got to a position is we've asked all of our divisional reps to give us a factual report based on their views from the CWU, and we're going to present that back to Royal Mail to say these are hotspots across the UK where, from a CWU perspective, your managers are not interfacing with our CWU reps as they should be. And literally, that's not conducive then to good IR, good ER, and the members are suffering in those workplaces. And then we're going to jointly work to how can we fix that? So if you're in an area where there's good relationships, you're in a delivery office where it's a good place to come to work, you've got a good comm, a good rep, they've got managers above that support them, and they don't implement some of the it's our business to run mantra. How can that then flow to all 1,250 delivery offices across the UK? Because without our members, wanting to come to work to do a good job for Royal Mail, to having the right tools, the right hours to do the job, this company is not going to become successful. And I think it's the stats that have been used, I think, a couple of times over the last few weeks, where Royal Mail's or IDS's turnover is sort of 8 billion, and the company's not making any profit. It is a scandal. They need our members. Our members do a fantastic job day in and day out, and they need to understand that they need good industrial relations and good employee relations to make the company better.
Thanks, Tony. Back on the USO, Mike Vinicum, who Mike's commented earlier on, as I said to you, we've got a mix of comments tonight. We've got ones from Facebook, which were commented on earlier on, and we've got obviously loads of live. We've taken a lot of live questions, and we really are rattling through them, so I do appreciate that, Tony. Mike Vinicum, though, says it's a real shame that with the proposed various duty patterns, there's no Monday to Friday option. Yep. And I think, when we were talking about original USO form, if we're honest, there was a lot of love from the members for just sack off the Saturday and let's go Monday to Friday. And obviously, then the job implications were explained, and and this new proposal came to be in. But your view on Monday to Friday duty sets, more Saturdays off?
Yeah. So look, I think on all the sets we've put forward so far, there is different propositions. So you've got the ones where there's 2 and 6 Saturdays off, 2 and 5 Saturdays off. We've got the Wallington week, 9-day fortnight, and then some of the other ones which are a mixture of 4-day weeks and a 5-day week to get more Saturdays off. So that's 2 and 4. Look, I think the honest answer is if everyone went to Monday to Friday, the job wouldn't have been Monday to Friday, because this is the key thing. It would have been, Royal Mail will still need to deliver parcels, tracked items on a Saturday and on a Sunday. There would have been, if Royal Mail moved to just delivering items Monday to Friday, then our biggest competitors, particularly in the parcels market, will go, thank you very much, we'll deliver your items if Royal Mail say no to delivering stuff on a Saturday and a Sunday. And by the way, how many of those companies would then say, well, if we're delivering your items on a Saturday and a Sunday for you, you may as well give us your Monday to Friday stuff as well. So it wouldn't just be an implication of the overall number of jobs that will be impacted from taking away Saturday in its entirety. The second thing would be how much of a work we would lose Monday to Friday, because I think that's been seen in other European postal administrations. The key bit for me, Chris, is how do we build innovative duty patterns over and above the ones we've done now? So it says, how can we get some 3-day weeks? How can we get some 4-day weeks? How can we get a better proposition across the week for our members to ensure they get a better work-life balance? And that's what we're really going to try and do through the USO pilots.
Does that go back to some of what you were saying earlier on the show about, like, getting out of that culture, which not right across the union, but in some areas of, like, being the victims of Royal Mail strategy and saying, look, let's get offices together. You and I were speaking to one of our local reps, weren't we? Brilliant, who was saying about, this is what I'm going to do when USO comes to us, if it comes through. I want 4-day weeks, I want 9-day fortnights, I've structured it up. Should we be getting offices together? Should we be saying, this is the strategy of the office, this is what we're going to be, and go into management, and you said earlier on, using the industrial relations framework if needed.
Yep. So one of the things, it links in, Chris, I think there's 2 parts, isn't it? I think we've become very reactive. I think we need to start being proactive. So whether we're giving our reps the tools for the jobs, whether we're saying this is how you can build the duties. And it is almost going to be dependent. Every delivery office is different in terms of the tasks that they do, the workload they've got. So we've got some delivery offices that open at 7 o'clock in the morning and close at 4 o'clock, and they just do delivery work. We've got other offices that open up in advance of that and do some CSS operations. They do DPR, they do LAT, they do collections. The customer service points open of an evening. Those offices have got workload across potentially a 24-hour period. How can we use that workload to create a duty content that enables someone to have a 4-day week where it's not all on delivery? And that's the bit we've almost got to work on. We've got to be innovative. We've got to try and give our members the courage to do that. And if Royal Mail say no, then for me, this is the one thing we have to do. We're entitled to put proposals to Royal Mail under the R framework. We present them with a proposal, and we actually take them through the framework and ensure that they give ground reasons of why that duty content or why that attendance pattern is not going to work in that office.
Actually, by the way, brilliant to see the number of women in the comments today asking questions. It really is appreciated, and it really, it helps to shape the debate in a totally different way. And I want to put a couple of those members' points to you now, Tony. Victoria Tronson says, will the new contracts ever become the same as the old contracts? Paid breaks, extra 2 time off per year, and paid for leaflets, like supplement, I guess Victoria's meaning there. Because I think, and it's brilliant, by the way, Victoria, I'm assuming you're a new entrant, so it's fantastic to see new entrants both joining the union and joining the union's communication channels to speak to people like Tony, so we do appreciate that. And I know, obviously, the EP agreement is there on that, but anything more you want to add?
Yeah, so look, I think Martin was clear that one of the first things that we got to tackle under Section 5 is the harmonisation of the new T's and C's. So that is one, fixing the pay rate. That becomes more of a crucial issue next week when the national living wage increases. And that is a pressure point on both Royal Mail and on the CWU to get that fixed. You've then got, obviously, the second part is not just the pay, but it's about the paid meal leaves. So what we're currently doing, Chris, is we are going through, with a fine-tooth comb, all of the changes that are in contracts for new entrants that have been introduced since the 1st of December 2022, ready for those talks, so that when we get into Section 5 with Royal Mail EP Group, that we come out of it and we try to fix as much of the detail in those contracts so everyone's on the same. We want to get that done. We want to get some of that done overnight, I think, which is what Martin's referenced with that agreement. And then there's an agreement to flow that through in terms of the projection going forwards.
Thanks, mate. Mint Fiction says that Dave Ward's good at being silent. He pretty much has been for 2 years. I think there's a good chance you might want to say something, Tony, but also to say, like, come on, get a life. Like, Dave, if you look through this YouTube channel, or you look through Facebook, or all the statements, or the LTBs, literally, there's never been a more communicative General Secretary than Dave. He's literally just been re-elected by a huge number of our branches. He's actually in Westminster today. I spoke to. He was in Belfast yesterday. He's out and about meeting the members every day. And do you know who that helps when you put something like that? It helps Royal Mail. It doesn't help us, because in a dispute a couple of years ago, when everything was on its backside, it was Dave that stepped forward and helped with other people like Andy Fury, Tony, Martin, and other people to actually make sure we still had a union and we still had a company to come back to. So I think we need a bit more respect, and I think we need to change some of the tone of the language in the social media comments, because that's how we build togetherness, that's how we build solidarity. So that's a bit of a rant from me, Tony.
I mean, I can re-echo that, Chris. There's a lot of criticisms on social media, isn't there? And I think I just want to pay tribute to some of the reps up in Scotland, because they've gone live first and foremost under the USO pilots. So Jason, Steve and Paul are picking that up in the three offices. And look, I've seen some communications that have been put out by some political parties that have been really disrespectful to the local reps. Like, they can say what they want about me, it doesn't bother me. I've got broad shoulders. People can slag me off, they can say I'll do a good job, they can say I'll do a bad job. What I get talked about on social media doesn't impact on me. But when it's targeted at some of our local reps, and it's not genuine and it's disrespectful, it's bang out of order. And I think people have to acknowledge that they're doing good jobs for our members in those workplaces, and they don't need some of that communication. And I think that also then flows through to Dave, which I think you summed up perfectly.
Thanks, mate. Back to the most important stuff, answering your questions, which I think Tony's rattling them through today, which is brilliant. Charlotte Davies, slightly off track, but I know you'd want to answer this, because I know you've put out some comms on this week. Charlotte Davies says, we need more information about this new PIN code upon receipt of parcels.
Yeah, so what Royal Mail have basically done is the denial of delivery receipts is on the increase. So there's 4 companies that have approached Royal Mail to offer a PIN on delivery. So what that means is you get to the doorstep, you knock on the door, it's a track 24, track 48. The customer then has to give you a text PIN code. So they would have had that on their phone. They give you that code, you put it into the PDA, and then you hand over the item. If they don't have the text, they don't have the PIN code, then you don't deliver the item. It's 739, and obviously that goes back to the process. Now, one of the things that's been picked up, and I put this in writing to Royal Mail, is this is yet another task at the doorstep which our members have to do, where they're not going to get the time and the credit for. And that's part of the wider conversations that I'm having with the business, and we've put in writing to say this cannot continue. Like, we understand, customer experience and the customer intelligence in terms of when do items get delivered, and all that security that comes around it is needed, because ultimately other couriers will start to offer that service. So Royal Mail are competing in that market, but we have to be in a position where our members get the time for that job. So we'll continue to update. At the moment, it's very small fry, Chris. It's just about 1,000 items a week, and with 4 retailers. But as it increases, we'll get more communications out.
Thanks, Tony. I hope you found that one useful and informative. Charlotte, Paramore, good question, this one, actually. Right to the heart, I think, of some of our most difficult challenges. When will Royal Mail actually start recruiting permanent staff and stop taking on agency workers? Now, that is multi-layered, isn't it? Because you've got the USO issue, and I guess nervousness about not creating a redundancy situation. But we've also, if we're honest about it, I've seen some stats this week of mail centres, of RDCs and that, and thinking, bloody hell, we need to get a grip of that.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. So one is Martin's, I think the meeting I referenced on Martin's at today is around that very subject issue around resourcing. There's another meeting myself, Martin and Davey are going to tomorrow to pick up with the business that says you've got USO reform that's being piloted. We know that based on their assumptions, there's less jobs overall. But how do you manage that between now and when Ofcom say yes, or when we've secured a national agreement? So how do you manage that transition around it? And likewise, I've seen some of those job adverts as well, Chris, where they've gone to Angard or they've gone to long-term agency. And likewise, this is, again, a challenge back to Royal Mail. You've got the same job between Delivery Office A and Delivery Office B with 2 different pay rates, and that's not acceptable. So that is a live challenge. That is not happening everywhere because, again, we get information from Royal Mail on the new entrants coming in on permanent contracts. So I think last week it was about 280 permanent contracts coming in over the next 2 weeks. But the whole issue of resourcing, what the jobs look like, the contracts that those individuals are being put on are actually live being discussed with Royal Mail today.
Thanks, Tony. About 10-15 minutes left, so get your questions in the comments. I can see some of our reps in there answering them, so thank you to everyone who's doing that. It really does, obviously, alongside Tony, who can't pick up every single question, although he is doing well tonight. It's great to see you helping out there. Lance Mason says, come to Teignmouth, I know that's quite near you, and see what a poor job Royal Mail and the CWU have done to our office, plus causing mental health issues. And he's saying we're not going to get a pay rise without conditions. So I guess he's saying there's going to be strings attached to any pay rise. So I think a bit of a cry for help there from Lance. He's commented a couple of times saying his office is a mess.
Yeah. So I will. I've been to Teignmouth before, so I will go back there. Obviously, I'll speak to Tom Phillips, the area delivery rep, and obviously Rolf, I think, has been picking it up and as the divisional rep for that area. So I'll engage with them and I'll try and get a visit there to see a colleague from Teignmouth. In terms of a pay rise, look, I think Martin's been clear we will get an above inflation pay rise. And it'll be a question then of how long that pay deal is, whether it's 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. The CWU's got a policy around that, and obviously everything linked to Section 5 has got a price, and how we deal with that. So obviously we're going to work through that over the next coming months. Obviously EP are going to want to make some big, bold announcements when they take over. And the key thing is we've got a policy forum on the 21st and 22nd of May, where we hope to be in a position where we can announce some of those talks and an outcome from it.
Thanks, Tony. You're getting loads of invites now. You said you're going to go there. Stephen Mark says, come to Hereford and see the fallout of the revision there. So there's another one for your list. Chris Parkinson says, back on track with the challenges, if you like. Chris Parkinson says, it's now 5 years since we've been prioritising tracked parcels over the delivery of letters. It's become a standard way of working. Virtually everyone at my office are completely disillusioned. So that point of like Royal Mail have just put so much crap into our members that they're just so used to the crap that they can't see beyond it, if that makes sense, you know?
Yeah, look, and I understand the question, Chris, because look, I think everything we say is the company's been mismanaged for a number of years since COVID. I mean, you look at what we did in terms of COVID test kits and how we were a champion for the role our members did day in, day out. That was an opportunity for the business to grow it, and they failed, in my view. And I think the whole of the CWU's view is they failed and it's been mismanaged. The USO will give us an opportunity to put a reset in delivery. Every job that will be done in delivery going forwards will have to go out. The company have acknowledged that. But it's how we manage that transition now where, obviously, none of us would want the company to go into administration. I think last year it was 350 or 330 million. They lost 350 the year before that. And I think Martin answered some of those points around pay and obviously USO in its entirety at this moment in time is just not sustainable, and that's the reality. So I think we have to do that. But we are seeing some green shoots in terms of some increase in performance and quality being restored in offices, particularly in the 37. But we need to flow that through to every delivery office. And again, we've started to get that information. We've started to share that now back with our reps. More resource meetings taking place, better SI, and a better challenge process back to the business.
Barry Crowes says, thanks for the live, Tony and Chris, and reps answering these things. They're important now. I mean, it's a good point. You don't want to labour the point too much because it's not about you or me. It's about the union engaging with people. But, one of the things that is interesting about this union, and it comes back to the social media element, is you won't go on to another union, I won't name them, but go on to another union's social media channels and see if any of them are doing what Tony's doing here tonight, taking live questions, challenges, criticisms, ideas from the members. They're not. Michael O'Neill says, really important question from Michael. Does the CWU have any plans to pick up and address more and more mental health issues with its members that are arriving?
Yeah, we have. So obviously the CWU has appointed a new central services health and safety advisor, so Jamie McGovern. Jamie is well versed in mental health and well-being. We're starting to have some conversations with Jamie about what can we do better in our workplaces to support both our representatives but also our members in that journey and improve that. So that's a live conversation, Chris, we're picking up. And I do just want to pick up on the point that you made around our communication. So with your help, we've done a delivery survey for our members. I think it's the first time that we've done one that I can recall, and I've been on the executive since 2011 previously. So it's the first time we've done that. And again, when we talk about engagement, we've just been reviewing the results this week. Really thankful for the members that have participated in that survey. But what is clear is more members participated in it when they received it from an email from the CWU than potentially from those that read it on an LTB and or from the branches. So I think we are going to develop that. How can we do that better in the future? Because we do want to engage, and I've been clear in my role and for your help, for your department. How can we improve that going forwards for all of our members?
Thank you, mate. Deju Tony, I think that's his name. Deju Tony. I think it's just a YouTube account name. It says, if the USO changes require less delivery staff, will that solely be achieved through natural wastage? And I guess, we know we've got that commitment in the EP agreement. We had it prior to that with Royal Mail, didn't we? But, obviously, this is massive change, and people will be thinking, as we've detailed loads of this session, we can't trust them. Will they move to compulsory redundancies? What would your take on that be? And reassurance, I guess.
So 100% the commitment to compulsory redundancies will stay. We've got that in the EP agreement. The fact that it was reinforced.
I should say no compulsory redundancies.
Yeah, that's what I said. No compulsory redundancies. We got that in the terms of reference and the pilot activity, reinforced in the EP agreement. So that's that there. And that is a live issue. And likewise, we've got all the protections in the 37 pilot offices where none of our surplus members will be forced out of their workplaces. So again, I think that's to keep it. In terms of the overall impact, in terms of USO, if it was to proceed based on the current model and the assumptions, Royal Mail have estimated it's anywhere between 6,000 and 8,500 less delivery jobs overall. But the point I made earlier on is that there'll be greater full-time jobs than there is currently. So there's that. Normally, in a 12-month period, the natural attrition is anywhere between 3,000 and 3,500 that leave Royal Mail Group every year. And the company has got a budget for voluntary redundancy. So we believe that figure is around about 2,500. And that was reinforced, I think, in one of their FAQ documents that they've put out this week. And obviously the key thing I think Martin touched on Tuesday is one of our aspirations is to fix the VR terms being reduced and get that corrected back up. So I think the commitment's there. We'll ensure there is no compulsory redundancies, and we will get that built into the overarching agreement for USO.
Thanks to it. A little positive. Let's throw one in. Tam Dewar, divisional rep from Scotland, says in every pilot office so far has had hours put back in that were ripped out during the strike, and part-time staff have had increases where they want it in their contractual hours. So there's some good news, and maybe a cause to optimism for members thinking about what the trials and potential rollout might bring them.
So absolutely. So thanks for Tam for making that comment. So we know that Newton Mearns has put an extra job back in. Cumbernauld, I think, has put 2 back in. and obviously it's the same for Gavin. And obviously, look, it's almost a bit of a comes back to Andy Young's question earlier on. This is where if we all come together for the CWU, both our local reps, our area reps, and our divisional reps, supported by this headquarters, we can fix some of the failings that Royal Mail have done over previous revisions. So look, I think it's a plea for me. The success is there. We are starting to pick that up in other offices where walks are unachievable. This will be our opportunity to fix that going forward. So we all need to play our part in that.
Peter Buchanan says there's been no information about the new incentive scheme. I mean, obviously it was part of a deal with EP Group and it was part of the post-takeover commitment, so I'm not sure what we could have given him, but can you give anything?
We haven't got into those talks yet, Chris, so it's one we can't answer, but one of the things that Martin is going to put on the table is about a balanced scorecard for everyone in the company. I think that's the agreement from EP Group. Everyone's treated the same. And obviously, we just need to get into that detail because it needs to be thought around things around Saturdays and Sundays. Is there opportunities around in terms of quality of service being tagged to that incentive? And Royal Mail always look at it from hours, whereas actually I think we need to start looking at it about if you get back to 100% quality, everything should come into that mix, customer complaints, etc., not just on hours and savings.
Trax FM, the original 101.3 Pirates, great name. And you've got a great YouTube channel, by the way. I'm really going to, when I get 5 seconds into not doing the comms job, we'll be looking at your channel. But thank you, by the way. You're always supportive in the chat as well, and you're always engaging our members, so we really do appreciate it. I know you've been a rep a long time, over many years. Royal Mail, he says, we know you're watching. Come on to these live broadcasts and listen to your staff. During disputes, for example, we've called Royal Mail out and we've said, come on if you think you're right, come and have a chat. Is that sort of thing you'd welcome? Would you welcome your sort of, counterpart sat there taking questions, listening to some of this when they're maybe in a little bit of denial?
So, yeah, absolutely, Chris. I think from a CWU perspective, I think I read something actually today before the session start that someone said all of the anger and frustration gets vented at the CWU, and yet it's Royal Mail managers that have mismanaged the company, and I know we have to react to that, but it's their business in that sense of their managers have been mismanaging it for the number of years that we've done. I'd share a platform with any Royal Mail manager. I think we should take that, and I think for me the other thing is once we've reviewed the delivery survey that closed last week and we've got that to a position, we're going to share that with Royal Mail in the sense of this is open, this is transparent, this is what our members are telling us in our workplaces across. Now, we won't go into specific units. We're going to just share that from a high-level point of view because we want to front that up. They need to deal with the reality of what our members are telling us day in, day out.
Thanks, Tony. Andy Orchard says CW Western Counties have partnered a Doddle connecting local support, local charities, wellbeing products within their sort of area. Maybe suggesting that's something that could be rolled out nationally, and it's got a few positive responses in the comments as well. Yeah,
so a big thank you to Andy because I was at Western Counties AGM earlier on this year, and Andy presented that to the members that were in attendance on that and outlined what he'd done with Royal Mail, how he'd worked on it, how he'd used those charities. So Andy, if you want to write that up to me formally, I would absolutely pick that up on behalf of the CW and see how we can adapt that and roll that out across the UK.
I want to read this comment, sorry, because I'm trying to do 20 things at once, reading the comments, listening to your answers. But Andrew Bryant's made a point I want to pick up on because we're getting near the end. Andrew Bryant says, I'm glad the union is trying and we should support it. Thanks, Andrew. But he says, as a local rep, I've had no impact and no support from the senior union. I hope you're able to change my opinion. So it's one of our local reps there asking for support from you. Message to Andrew.
Andrew, give me your email address, give me your phone number. I'll get in contact with you and I'll put that right.
So perfect. Can't say any more than that, mate. And thank you, by the way, for putting your head above a parapet and representing this great union. We need more people like you, your good self. Kim Pittman says, how can you, by you she means the union, not you personally, Tony, have an agreement with somebody who has just bankrupted the Dutch Post? It's a joke.
Yep, so thanks, Kim, because Kim was here yesterday, I think, in the local rep session that I had in the CW headquarters yesterday, and so sort of same question was asked. So I think for the Post NL, I think Daniel Krasinski, EP Group, only got about a 23% stake in the company, so they don't own it all. They've got a minority stake. But obviously, we're alive to that. I think we've got some concerns around it. And I think this is where what Martin and Dave would say is this is why we've got a free or tripartite agreement. So we've got the government that will be able to hold EP Group to account in terms of the legal contract on it. We're going to have our agreement in terms of Section 5. And obviously, we've got our agreement with Royal Mail. And there's a number of really strong really strong undertakings that are in the government and EP group takeover, which means that they can't do certain aspects and without the criteria they have to meet. So I think we've got enough assurances there, but obviously the proof will come into the pudding. And I think the real test, I think, for me, Chris, will be when the takeover is completed, because I think it's very likely that it will be done. I think the proof for our members will be when the union reaches that agreement on Section 5, and when we get to that policy forum on the 21st, 22nd of May, hopefully that will be the sign that things are going to change going forwards.
My last USO-related question, I'm going to give you a chance to sum up, because I think it's been an excellent session, Tony, would be the one about the logic members are struggling to get their head around of, like, my walk's failing now, and potentially on some days you're going to give me more mail. How is my workload then going to be achievable? What is the logic there?
Yeah, so in essence, like, the question is this, isn't it? So currently we deliver all products 6 days a week, and second class mail sort is going to be condensed into Monday to Friday and alternate. So someone who might have a 50% call rate on a walk now might go to a 75, 78% call rate. The way in which that call rate will be managed and that increase of workload will be done is you pick a different attendance pattern that gives you a longer day. Now we have to work that through in terms of start and finish times. We have to deal with all the fatigue stuff which I referenced earlier on. So that's part one. Secondly, this is where, so a lot of our members in delivery are doing double prep. They're doing double prep on a full-time duty. And where that will change to, they will go to single prep, and that's where part-time has increased to full-time. So you take away some of the indoor to add on to the outdoor, and that's how we deal with it. But we have to deal with all of the nuances. Here is the problem. We got currently now 56,000 delivery routes across the UK, and no delivery route is the same. And that's what the pilots are having to work through. So that's first and foremost. The second part, though, is the evidence from TAM up in Scotland. So that in Cumbernauld, Newton Mearns and Girvine, where we've got walks that are not completing now, they have been fixed, because there's no point adding on additional work to walks that are not achievable now. So it's a two-pronged approach. We have got an appropriate point when we've made some progress with Royal Mail in Section 5. We will get out there to all 1,200 offices that are not in USO pilots now and get that base data verified, and that will be the opportunity for people to fix broken revisions and walks that are just not achievable in their office.
Should we take one of these shows on the road to one of these offices, do you think? And let's get our cameras in, let's film a feature of what it's like, and let's show the wider membership? Absolutely,
Chris. I think our members would value that, and likewise, probably going to put myself on the spot here, but I also want to get out on delivery with some of our members in a live-in scenario, because I do think I did it under the delivery methods in 2015 and 18, and I want to do it again, because I do think it shows leadership if you're out with our members while they're out on the street. I think the other thing is we've talked about a CWU communication, so with your department and the postal department producing that. The challenge is we don't want to just do it for one or two offices at the moment, because you almost put them in the spotlight of the whole union. When we get to more that have started, that will become a generic CWU communication on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, and that will include stuff from the CWU nationally. It will from the CWU reps locally, and from our members, because it's important that we're transparent and we include that in any communication.
Thanks, Tony. I think, by the way, it's been an excellent show, right on 6 o'clock. So I'm going to give you the chance just to give any final messages you want to give to our members.
Yeah, look, thanks to the members for listening tonight and joining the session. There is a lot going on across the whole of the CWU, but particularly in delivery, the USO pilots. Understand the state that some of your office is in, but listen, this is an opportunity. We are going to put this right. We are going to get the right agreement under Section 5. I think you heard that from Martin on Tuesday in the session that he did with Chris. Trust your union, back your union, and together we will ensure that all of your jobs become sustainable and fair going forwards.
Thank you, Tony. So thanks first of all to Tony. I think he's done a brilliant job tonight. Moreover, thank you to those of you who are up early hours this morning responding to our status, saying these are the questions you wanted asking. Hopefully I've got most of those across. We've got dozens and dozens of them answered live as well. I think Tony's done an excellent job. So thanks to Tony. Thanks more importantly to you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week.